Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Porter. I'm the executive director of Be a Part of the Conversation. Really glad that you're with us. I think this is the third or fourth time that we're addressing siblings as a community program. I'm going to tell you in a little bit about another support we have for siblings. But first, I want to thank the funders for this program. Chester County Department of Drug and Alcohol Services has been a partner of ours for a number of years now. We're so grateful to them. They provide funding so that we can have these programs at no cost to you. So thank you so much to them. I did want to let you know a couple of things. We have a website with so much information. I hope you'll visit that. It's conversation.zone. If you want to learn more about sibling support, you can go to the piece of our website that's for siblings. So that's just our website, conversation.zone/siblings. Also want to make sure that you know that, yes, this is being recorded and it's going to land on our YouTube channel. We have more than 200 programs recorded there because ever since the pandemic, that's been a relatively easy thing to do. We used to always be in person. We still are in person a lot of the time, but this allows us to have a broader geographic reach. And on a cold night in Pennsylvania like it is tonight, it's nice to kind of be at home and warm and watching from our laptops, I hope. I also want to tell you about some of our services, and one is very relevant to tonight's topic. We have a sibling partnership meeting that takes place every week from 8 to 9 p.m. on Zoom, so it is online. Big shout out to Mallory Henry, who facilitates this along with some other intrepid volunteers. This is just a wonderful opportunity for siblings, and they must be at least 18 years old. Unfortunately, we do have that one restriction. But otherwise, anybody's welcome to attend who has a brother or sister who has struggled with addiction, alcohol use disorder, that kind of thing. You're welcome to attend and be with others who know exactly what you're going through. Maybe not exactly, but they get a good idea because they've been through it themselves. We have the same kind of thing for parents called Parent Partnership. We actually have 19 meetings every week for parents, guardians, grandparents who have a son or daughter of any age, of any stage in life, in recovery, out of recovery, not interested in recovery. We have it all. I am the parent of someone with a lot of years under his belt, thank goodness, but I sure need my people. And this is where I find so much comfort and support and resources and all of that. So you can visit this page on our website to get details about each of the meetings. You just click on these buttons. The green buttons take you to a Zoom meeting. So the link is right there. The purple buttons tell you the address of the meeting, where it's in person. And those blue buttons are the sibling meeting that I mentioned. But there's no need to register. There's no charge for this. You can just show up. Finally, I'll let you know that we have a family recovery course. This is a 3-part course, also free to attend. This is capped at 12 individuals. It's led by 2 instructors. I'm one of 18 instructors who have lots of lived experience and lots of training in this. And we're just peers helping other families navigate this, but everybody gets a manual shipped to them. It's on Zoom. Sometimes it's in person, but mostly it's on Zoom, and also free to attend if I didn't mention that. Because we offer so many things at no cost to anyone, we hope that you'll consider joining us as a member. This is a monthly donation of at least $10 a month, and it really does help us to kind of keep going and doing this kind of work to support all the families and communities that are looking for support. So I'm going to tell you about our first speaker, who is Pat Brown. I'm so excited Pat is with us. Pat is a licensed clinical social worker and interventionist with Ethos Treatment. He has extensive experience in addiction counseling and intervention services. With a summa cum laude bachelor's in social work from Cabrini University and a master's from Widener University, Pat is committed to ongoing education to stay updated on mental health treatment research. Pat teaches courses on addiction and social work practice at Cabrini and Widener University, respectively. Dedicated to fostering positive change, Pat collaborates with individuals and families, focusing on relationship repair, communication improvement, boundary establishment, and promoting healthy life decisions. And after we hear from Pat, we're also going to hear from Stephen, as you see my note there, who is going to very graciously share his story as a person who's been impacted by a sibling's addiction. So I'll turn it over to you, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. It's so nice to be here. We've talked about this for a long time, and you know, here we are. Finally, you finally wrangled me and slowed me down long enough to get here, and I'm really really thrilled to be here. And uh, I'm so happy this group is offered for so many reasons, and along with all the services that Be a Part of the Conversation offers, because there's such power in we. And Kim, you threw it in there. I need my people was something you said. Kind of in the middle there. Probably not, maybe not even aware that you said it. It probably comes out automatically, and I'm a firm believer of we all need our people. As Kim said, I'll give a brief introduction. It's funny to look at my headshot. Of course, I'm picking apart, like, really? But I picked that one? And then my bio, is old. I could probably have chat write a new one in about 30 seconds, but we're not going to do that. But as Kim said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. A really proud clinical social worker, as I think about that out loud. What do I do professionally? I work for an organization locally in the Philadelphia region called Ethos Treatment. We are an outpatient service provider for substance use addiction and mental health therapy. We have 9 sites plus telehealth in the region. So I am a clinical site supervisor of 4 of our sites, and the clinicians who serve clients in those sites. In our Westchester location, I run a morning intensive outpatient IOP program for clients with substance use disorder. I started a family group with Ethos Treatment virtually every Wednesday night, so a clinician-led option for people within the Ethos system. I have a private practice as well. I see clients in Collegeville and Westchester for Ethos there. So pretty busy guy. As I say all of that, it's like, ooh, that's not. I'm blessed to be busy, as I often say. And on a personal level, like, listen, is this guy? Who is this guy? As a qualifier, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm the son of an alcoholic father who passed away many, many years ago. And I'm a sibling of a brother who is currently in the ICU in a different state, indirectly because of the impact of a life of extensive drug and alcohol use. The organs shutting down because they're tired. And why are they tired? Because of extensive drug and alcohol use. So I come at this from a lot of different angles personally, from a lot of different angles professionally. The family group that I've run is the 5th one I've started in this region. So I either love this work or I'm a job hopper and maybe a little talented. You'll let me know which one of those titles that I've earned. So I come at this from a lot of angles. I'm not going to do a PowerPoint presentation. I would rather have a conversation, or at least I want to include you as much as possible. I don't want to feel like I'm talking at you. So please, in the spirit of that, I talk fast sometimes. Sometimes I mumble. I talk. This is my language. This is what I do every single day. So sometimes I may say something that you want some clarification on. So please raise your hand. Please shout. Kim will flag me down to make sure that I don't want you to feel like, hey, I don't know what that is, and maybe I should or could. Or if there's something that we talk about here in the moment that you have a comment on that resonates, we'll go that way, and we'll of course have questions and answers at the end. So I'm going to start with some of my foundational work. Right, I do an awful lot of work with families, and probably if I really laid down my caseload of clients, that I've seen over the last handful of years, over half are somebody who loves the addicted person. So while I do have people in recovery, again, I run an IOP, an intensive outpatient group that meets 3 days a week. So my sleeves are rolled up and I'm working with people like your loved ones. And so much of the clientele that I serve is the family around. And I've just gravitated to that, maybe the personal side of that. But, I'll tell you, because I'm a storyteller, too much probably. I'll have an eye on the clock. my first job in this field, I worked in the admissions department of an inpatient treatment facility. You know, when you called, I answered, right? When the family called, I answered. And part of that job was, hey, do we have a bed? Yeah, come on down. And the part of the job that really struck me was I greeted you at the door. And I handled the admission of getting your loved one, if they went to inpatient treatment, acclimated. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of questions and answers. And the last part of that process was, taking the person who's being admitted into the facility back out to the lobby to see whoever drove them in. Oftentimes a family member, mom, dad, partner, sibling, etc. And what really started this specific part of my professional career was I got a front row seat to that. A hug, some tears, and your loved one went through the door. And the people in the lobby never, what's from the other side of that green door? They're going to be safe there. And what really started this for my career was I got this question all the time. They would look at me and they'd say, Pat, what do I do now? And my answer at the onset of my career in this field was, you're probably going to cry in your car. And I'm going to make some recommendations for what to do after that. But that's the best I had to offer, guys. The organization I worked for didn't really do anything for families. The field as a whole left the family behind. And I was dissatisfied with that, quite frankly. So at 5 organizations, I've changed that because I think that's not cool. So some of the foundations of my work beyond how I got started in this, my ABCs 1, 2, 3. I like to level set. We're all scared. Like, if your loved one seeks treatment, certainly in the periods of time when they're not, you're scared. They're scared. I don't care what they're saying to you. I don't care the words that come out of somebody's mouth in active addiction and early recovery. I promise you, when they come see Pat the therapist and my gazillions of peers across the land, they are scared. And heck, I'm scared. Great. We're all in the same spot. There's none of this. We're all at the starting blocks together. Let's get rolling. And you'll hear me reference disease, so I believe in and talk about often the disease model of addiction. Kim, I know in years past you've had Dr. Kevin McCauley, who did Pleasure Unwoven, as a speaker. I really encourage you to go to Be a Part of the Conversations website, our YouTube channel, and look at his talk. It's really, he really breaks down the disease model of addiction very well. And I don't, I'm not trying to, if you don't believe that, that's okay. I'm not going to try to arm wrestle you. I'm not trying to win votes. Like what I've often said to people, and I've taught this in the classroom, and I obviously work with this professionally with clients. Like, I don't care. I'm too busy helping people to get bogged down into whether or not it's a disease or not. And some people have strong feelings either way. And like I said, if you want to debate, let's have coffee and we'll have a conversation. And again, I'm not going to try to arm wrestle you. I'm too busy helping people. I don't like getting bogged down in stuff that if we're never going to agree, we can't agree on that, but we can agree that let's get help, right? And what help can look like. So that's kind of where I've always sat with this. But, what I have found both in the classroom and working with people, in my office is the biggest piece of resistance to the buy-in of it's a disease. When I shake it all down, and I have a conversation with somebody, not a debate, but a conversation, it's usually boils down to this. I've been hurt and my pain hasn't been tended to. And kind of to say that it's a disease may give them a hall pass. I don't know how to feel about that. And when we talk about siblings, in family healing, I borrow from some peers, full family healing is my goal. As you know, siblings are the last ones invited to healing. I'm so glad you're here. That's the way it's been set up. Unfortunately, we don't make room for siblings often in family sessions at inpatient and outpatient treatment. We can change that. Kim's changing that. Thank you, Kim, for changing that. And when we talk about the disease, like why do I lean on why we treat it as a disease? We're not treating bad people. We're treating sick people. And when we stay in that kind of space, we lead with empathy. So the other ABC 1, 2, 3 part of my work foundationally is, addiction, the disease of addiction has a spot at the kitchen table. And I like that metaphor because everybody's been impacted. It may live in me, right? But everybody's been impacted. I do the Thanksgiving dinner thing. We've all been, reaching over the table setting of addiction to get the mashed potatoes. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable, sometimes challenging. How do we live and operate as a family when we're reaching over a place setting for years and years and years? So my whole goal is let's remove that not only from the individual impacted by addiction, but let's remove that so everybody doesn't have to reach over it. And what you've experienced is every single relationship is impacted. It's just not me to you and me to my partner, me to my parent. It's everybody else has been reaching over this thing that has been painful, right? So what's the impact, right? So many things. Emotional what? Emotional safety, emotional security, emotional maturity, availability of the whole system, right? Intimate connection, which is what we want in families. Like I want to empathize. I want to connect. I want to love. I want to be supported. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be cared for by my family. That presence of addiction has made it very challenging for those key elements of long-term emotional health to be possible. How do we boil all those emotional, wonderful words that I said down? It all comes through communication, right? Without that emotional maturity and emotional availability, how can we possibly have healthy communication? And again, no matter the direction, that communication has been fractured. And without that communication, we won't have what we need. A big piece, as you've seen, if you have a loved one who's in, obviously an active addiction, right? But also as you start to see them hopefully be in recovery, you see the power of one, right? One person in a family system can pull the lever. They did. You experienced it. One person in active addiction pulled a lever in the family, and everybody reacted. In all the ways, right? All the ways you've experienced. So when we talk about, when we work with clients and we work with, whomever is in my office, right? And who's ever on my screens, it's in recovery, one person can pull a lever and create an equal impact, right? We do obviously have such great worry of, oh my gosh, the impact of addiction in the family has been this. One thing that again, ABC 1, 2, 3, some of the basics of this is the impact of recovery in a family can be what? It can be just as monumental. And one person can pull the lever and everybody can adjust. And a lot of times they do. But when we talk about pulling that lever, remember families work on balance points. Homeostasis. Every family, much like my house, has a thermostat. It's not that easy to pull the lever in every direction. And if it's been set at a place of lack of communication skills, lack of emotional maturity and availability and connection, it's really hard to change that thermostat. So it's I like to say it's pulling a lever, but that pulling that lever is really, really challenging because many of you may have felt like, hey, when I try to pull the lever, it set a boundary. I try to distance myself. I try to be safe, whatever that means to me, emotionally, mentally, physically at times. Uh, that family sometimes, that system wants to, like, how dare you get back over here? You belong in that chair. Like, and for the addict, for the addicted person, remember, the addicted person puts everybody in their life where addiction can grow and thrive. So you've been positioned in a spot where I need you. If I'm in active addiction, I need you to be right there. And whenever you try to get away from that spot, my addiction is not safe. So what do? Get back there. How dare you? Right? I will say or do something to try to get you back into that spot where my addiction is safe. And so much of what you've, I'm sure, experienced is, wow, there's a lot of behaviors that are very peculiar and very challenging and very hard to be around. And like, I can't even wrap my head around what I've seen and what I've experienced for the active addict as they get well and pull the threads on all of their, patterns of behavior. It's, yeah, they were all put in spots where my addiction was safe. Because my primary purpose was to keep my addiction safe, and when we talk about that thermostat, like, it doesn't matter if that's a high performing, really healthy family or an extremely dysfunctional family. We have our thermostat and we fall back into it. And shoot, years later, the holidays were just here. People sometimes go back to their homes, and on the front doorstep, subconsciously, I roll back I fall back into how this is going to look. For me personally, I'm the youngest of four. I've been on some phone calls because of a health issue, and I'm listening to everybody fall back into the spots. It's like being 15 again. Like, just hearing the voices and how we're all relating, it's like, wow, we do that too. You bet we do. And I use the word dysfunctional intentionally because, I do a lot of work around changing our relationship with the meaning of words. Dysfunctional is often thrown around like there's such a dysfunctional family as an insult, right? Well, there's a dictionary in the world. The Greek prefix dys means pain. Dysfunctional, folks, simply means to function around pain. So when you think about your experiences reaching over the table setting of addiction, you've simply been trying to function around pain, yours, theirs, and everybody else at the table. And that's the family homeostasis thermostat. Hard to change the thermostat. And as you've probably experienced, I'm sure, is when all the energy is focused, hyper-focused on the addicted person, who gets lost? At some level, so many things. You, right? And it's really, really hard because what you've experienced and what all of us have experienced is we had to hyper focus on the person who's addicted. Why? Because whatever it looked like, they were setting off sirens. That was making the most noise. It could be life or death. So, I can't be mad in essence, but I can feel it. I can speak about it. I'm going to have to find the places in which I can speak about it because the impact is there and it's been felt. To one of our needs, we have a lot of needs in every relationship, and some of them is to be heard, right? To be seen. And oh, what a tragedy it is to not be seen in our family of origin, in any relationship. In a long-term relationship, what a tragedy it is to not be seen. Um, and what we have found, when you're talking about family systems work and you're talking about, when you're examining the impact of an addict in the family, is we learn at a young age that what is so important, stability, again, emotional stability, safety. Well, for many siblings, we've learned that it's elusive, very fragile, and perhaps ultimately not a spot that I'll find great comfort in. And when I don't find great comfort in safety, how do I partner? How do I parent? So the impact potentially down the road is a lot, to say the least. There's a lot of, what we say, uh, uh, trapdoors, right? There's a lot of, this is a sneaky disease in so many ways of the patterns of behavior that, again, everybody at that table starts to own. And once we own them, you know, I, I roll back to simplicity. Once I've learned how to tie my shoe, my brain wants to make it automatic. I don't really think about how I tie my shoe. Do you think that's the only thing you do through the course of your day that's automatic? Not even close. Most of your day is automatic, which means most of my day are patterns of behavior that started somewhere and got fine-tuned and are firmly in place. As I like to say to my clients who are in early recovery, yeah, I'm sure they're happy to hear this. It's like, we put down the substance and you think you're hiding behind 3 or 4 or 5 curtains, and that's what you're behind. You've been living behind about 3 dozen, at least, curtains. Pulling those out and finding comfort in the light is part of their recovery process, but it's part of ours too. We recover in the light, So another basic of my work is, you do not recover alone, and you must recover out loud. I beg all of you to own that for yourself, and that's not just family recovery from this, from loving an addict, having an addict in the family, an addicted person. Grief and loss. Recovery from grief and loss is, it's for me, it starts with the same prescription. Please don't try to recover alone, and please don't try to recover silently. We need people. So when we talk about time check, when we talk about some of the impacts on me, as a sibling, if emotional availability as the umbrella was not necessarily available or visible or didn't seep into my DNA, right? So how do I express my emotions as I go forward in every relationship that I have, in close friendships, right? In partnerships, with coworkers, right? How do I express? How do I stand up for myself? How do I advocate for myself? Like, wait a minute, have I lost my voice? Right? What a tragedy it is not to be seen. So can I express any emotions, especially strong ones? Am I avoidant, pardon me, of those things? And some of that avoidance plays out in so many ways. One horrible line. I always preface when I think I'm going to say something that people may cringe at, but I have a horrible line, but I think I keep repeating it, so it must have been received well over the years. Part of this process for everyone is mourning the fairy tale. Like, my family was supposed to look like this. How come it didn't look like it should have or could have? And for each one of us individually, I think it's important to have conversations in safe places around that. Like, I didn't get what I needed. Can I mourn the fairy tale? It could have looked like. I've read the books. I've seen the movies. When it doesn't look like that, there is a piece of healing for all of us. And another piece of impact of having a sibling and growing up around that at whatever age, right? It's not just growing up, but being exposed to it for a lengthy period of time is we are attracted to what we know. So Kim and I were chatting when we first got on here. It's like the connections are mind numbing. Like somebody will marry an addict, not because their brother was an addict, but I'm attracted to what I know. It's just the way we are as humans. And you can write down on paper, like, I don't like this. This is chaos. This is anarchy. Who would ever want that? I certainly don't want that in my life. But when you're out there in the wild and living with people, what are we drawn to? Familiar. So it's not unusual for us to see that of when addiction is somewhere in the family, people partner with what they know. Another impact is the sense of self, right? And all of this, again, the sense of self, but it gets shattered when my needs aren't met. And it's not about blame, it's about is. Where's my sense of self? What are my needs and how do I get them fulfilled? And when people are efforting to fulfill them, can I even recognize it? Folks, my number one thing that I say every single day, I think at some point in my life, is 100% of my clients who are at whatever level of early recovery to going into meaningful recovery, but not even 99%, 100% of my clients who have battled addiction do not know how to receive love. So some of that, I hate to say it's contagious, but it's when people are trying to love me in healthy ways, when I have been around and been exposed, I do this, when I've been exposed to something that clouds my vision, do I know how to receive it? It's a real tricky thing for everybody involved. But so how do we bust our way through this and bust our way out of this and, push through barriers and find our way to healing, right? We tell our stories. We tell them in the places where we can, and one of the things that I talk about a lot with families is, when you love somebody who's an addict, you get the good stuff last. Sorry, guys, but you do. They have to go out into their communities and tell stories where they can without fear of the shame and the judgment and fear of you making a face, right? But the same goes for us, right? There's some things I just can't tell my friends. They may not understand it. I'm afraid of their reaction. So I better find the places in which I can talk about this stuff, right? Support groups, a therapy office, a therapy office. I really encourage you to have a therapist. And if you're looking for one, find one that also, I think, sees some clients and has a history of seeing clients in active addiction or in early recovery, and also has some specialties and some training in working with families, just to have some in that lens. And I got just a couple more minutes before I go, and I want to talk about, make sure I hit two pieces because we talk about them all the time. So when we talk about family work, there's two phrases, two topics that come up over and over and over and over and over again. Social media's got a million little memes about enabling. Don't enable. You shouldn't enable. It's cute. They all miss one piece. I call it the truth. When you love somebody who's in active addiction, I have this fear. If I don't do this, they may die. Folks, give yourself some grace. That's hard to operate. Talk about functioning around pain. It's hard to operate with a thought of, if I don't do this, they may die. I don't see that on social media. It's too nice a place to deal with such brutal honesty. And when you think about other people in your life operating around the addicted person, like I just trying to add a little empathy and understanding into our lenses of, yes, I can say, man, they enabled that behavior for so long. If I don't do it, then what? That's scary. And the other piece we talk about, boundary 101. The biggest piece is, how do I build a healthy relationship? A big piece, nothing's the biggest. How do I build a healthy relationship with boundaries? Boundary 101 is it's not to control you, it's to protect me. My favorite quote on boundaries is a person named Prentice Hemphill, an educator, a therapist. A boundary is the place in which I can love you and me simultaneously. And if you really breathe that in for a second, it's hard. If I let you push through my boundary, I don't love me very much, and I certainly don't love you. Right? So it's that spot where I'm happy and healthy, and I'm not angry and resentful for you. And a good boundary, of course, gets resistance, doesn't it? But it's about protecting me. I can't control anybody else. Never have, never will. So when we think about boundaries, again, just we stay in the basics. Do I hope it's impactful for somebody else? You betcha. The goal is for my safety, my emotional safety, my peace, and all of my work, folks, with you, parents, with partners, with siblings, and with the addicted person. All of it is how and where are we going to find peace and build habits and patterns of behavior that keep us there. Full family healing must include a very, very high level of sustainable peace. That's the goal. I know it's elusive, I know it's tough, and I know it's been not part of what's been going on. It's very possible, and it's ultimately quite wonderful. But it will take work. And you all know this. I'm sure it's part of a lot of what being part of the conversation does. This works a lot of ways. When somebody's in active addiction and they start to recover, they get well. And if the family does no work, there seems to be a separation. If the family does a lot of work and the person battling the substances doesn't, there seems to be a separation. If everybody's working, it folds together nicely, increases the possibility of folding together nicely and having what we've been looking for the whole time. Emotional intimacy from all the relationships at that kitchen table. My time's up.
Wow, Pat, thank you so very much. That was really beautiful. You touched on so many things that, yes, we do talk about, and I had so many thoughts, so I'll keep them to myself for now. I'm really excited to introduce us to Stephen. So thank you again, Pat, and we'll be talking to you again on the other side. So, we always say that the most important person in the room is the person in recovery. And we talk a lot at Being Part of the Conversation about family recovery. And I think Stephen is a beautiful example of what family recovery really looks like. So I'm really grateful to you for being here and sharing your story with us, Stephen.
Thank you so much. Kim, can you hear me okay through my phone right now?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to Pat for everything that you just said. It really, hammers home so many things that I've thought about growing up with two siblings in addiction and a father in addiction. And just from a clinical standpoint, I just really appreciate everything that you just said, because it's things like I even can take notes on that and then look over it later. And then, that's a form of therapy in a way. But to everybody else that's listening, my name's Steven Caltabiano. I really appreciate you guys coming in here, listening to everything today. My family has certainly been affected by substance use disorder. A quick little family background on me. The first addict, I guess, that I was introduced to within my life was my grandmom. My mom's mom suffered with anorexia. And, when I was really young, she had to move out west in order to get treatment for anorexia. And then actually most of my family moved out there as well. So right off the gate from me being born, there was a big family separation from a lot of my cousins, kind of getting away from my mom and her situation going on with my dad. That wasn't necessarily the best. They divorced when I was really young. My father was suffers from substance use disorder as well right now. And at the time when I was a kid, nobody really knew anything about how to treat what people were going through in my family, instead of just a couple tips here and there. I felt like we definitely endured a lot of trauma with my father and his next wife after my mom. We would have to go over there on weekends. My brother and sister, they definitely dealt with a lot as well. My sister, she started using young. She started, smoking marijuana when she was in an early teenager, I believe, maybe even a little bit before that. And from my understanding, my dad had something maybe a little bit to do with that, or kind of like turned the other way. Um, and as we got older, my sister played a really big she had a really big influence on my brother's substance use. So my brother and I, we were inseparable. He's 2 years older than me, and as we grew up with, our mom for a couple years in our childhood was a single mom, and it was just us three, me, my brother, and my mom. My sister, even though like she was only 16 or 17, but she had been living in Vegas to try to give her a better path. My mom has always worked so hard to give us the best possible path, and she started educating herself tremendously on addiction when I was an early teenager. And my sister, being 9 years older than me, having had to endure a lot more trauma from my father, and also just growing up in a different era than me, I haven't always like been able to relate to her as much as I was able to relate to my brother, which is why I had a lot of confusion growing up, surrounding my brother and sister's addiction. I didn't know whether to be that sibling that was massively supportive, always showering them with positivity, or to be the complete opposite. I would, sometimes be extremely critical, especially of my brother, at certain times. I would, with my brother, I think that I would oftentimes show him in a subconscious way that I was doing better than him in certain ways. I don't I hope it wasn't exactly that, but I tell myself that now as an adult, just as part of like the trauma responses of things and everything else that kind of has gone and played out since they started using. Now my sister, and she had been going through multiple rehabs every other year. And my brother was a very talented baseball player. My brother had gotten a fight, and after that fight, he was severely injured. He got prescribed Percocets, got heavily addicted to them, and even before that time, he never even smoked weed before. He started smoking weed after he got those prescription medications, and it was around the same time he just started doing all of that together. He still was good at baseball. But around his 18th birthday, we had shared a room for 15 years. Pat, you talked about how you were close with your siblings, sharing a room and whatnot with one of your brothers. That's absolutely what me and my brother were. So one day I'm 15 years old, and it was his 18th birthday, and he just said, like, I'm leaving. He got up and went. He was upset with something that was going around the house. There was rules in our house. He couldn't just go out and act how he wanted. He couldn't go out and just kind of act crazy. We had to be back at a certain time. It was normal. It was a normal way of living, but sometimes for my siblings, it was just they thought it was too much. They thought it was too much. Too many rules or maybe it just didn't. Sometimes having to check back in with authority, anything with authority with my siblings has always been a little rough. My brother, he moved in with my father. Despite all of the things that we knew about my dad, curiosity kind of like drove him over there at a point where he was definitely at a really bad spot in his addiction before we even recognized it as one. And from there, my sister, even though we just visited her at rehab, she she had some clean time. Maybe there's assumptions that she was using down there, but at the same time, she came back up when she found out my brother was with my dad. She came up immediately to live with them, and I believe that the three of them together was it was pure chaos. It was really hard for my family. I have a little sister myself. who I spent my whole life being the youngest sibling because I am in my family. I'm my mom's youngest. But I do have a half sibling from my dad's side that I never had a connection with because of all the trauma that surrounds that. Today I'm 28 and she's 18 and we play video games together, and that's really awesome that we have finally connected after all these years. And it's been really nice for me to do that. And I think that an added thing with that is, as my brother's addiction enhanced, he had he had just had so many different battles through along the way. He passed away 2 years ago from an overdose, and I mean, to not sugarcoat things, it's terrible. He was my best friend. We did absolutely everything together. I have his little cutout head right above me because, I try to talk to him as much as I can. I feel like he is with me spiritually, and that helps, but he's not here. And I do think about the things that I could have done on a consistent basis of like, what could I have done where he could still be here? But because of therapy, because of going to AL team meetings growing up, because of having such a big support system in my life, I go to bed every night knowing that it wasn't my fault. And that feels really good for me. I sometimes feel super guilty because, I have a mom who feels really guilty. I have a stepfather who feels so guilty. I've never seen my stepdad upset really in my life until the past couple of years. So there's changes with things that I'm navigating. I became a father 2.5 years ago. And that's another huge positive thing in my life. I think about all the things that I've been given by just life in general, by God. And I just feel luckier than a lot of other people who have been in my situation as well. When I think about the dynamic with my siblings, I've always had animosity, but they've always made me laugh super, like we've always been super close. We butt heads harder than a lot of other people I know, but then we confided in each other and got along better than a lot of people that I know too. And so everything was always black or white. There was never like a middle chill ground with my siblings and the dynamic. Even still today with my sister, it's really challenging. She's obviously gone through like so much since my brother has passed away and even before that. But at a certain point, like, we're adults and we have children and we have to take responsibility for our own actions, no matter how that looks. Um, that's a certain reason why I've put up the boundaries that I have. And it took me a while to learn about boundaries. When I think about boundaries, I think about what's healthy and what's porous. Now, that line can be determined by communication, in my opinion. I feel like I've had porous boundaries with my siblings in the past because everything was met with intensity. If my sister was growing up, I felt like my voice wasn't as heard like my brother, and that's just a little sibling thing. I don't think that has anything to do with the substance abuse, the substance use disorder, as much as it does just being a little sibling of like two outgoing people, and so I've tried to differentiate those things over the years to like better understand myself. But I think at the end of the day, I am just like pretty sensitive too, like as a person. So that definitely plays a role in like how I deal with things personally. I confide in other people a lot, like my friends, my fiance, and just about like anybody that comes into my life. I want to have a very close personal relationship with them. So that side of my personality has helped me a lot, especially the past 2 years. But nothing's gonna bring back my brother. Like, I go through things on a daily basis. He's the only person that would ever understand me on, I mean, 99% of the things that happen in my life, and I can't share that with him. I feel a spiritual connection with him about it, which is something new. But at the same time, it's and it's awesome too. But it's not having him here, and it doesn't, nothing's going to bring him back. How my family communicates with each other is definitely crucial in how we heal. I'm very grateful for my stepfather in that sense because he's just always been the glue that kind of holds things together. He's so solid. I get insecure sometimes because I'm like, how do you stay so solid? How do you stay like, I don't understand how he can show up to work consistently and always be a positive voice for somebody. And then at the same time, just like demonstrate with, he doesn't even need to use words. He's not a talker, he's a doer. So like he shows by example for everything. That really, really, like, having those types of people. And his name's Brian, and even my fiance's boss, we call him we call him like a Brian, because he's just somebody who's super nice, always on time, always organized, just like a great person. When you have a Brian, it makes things really a lot, especially if you have a tight connection with them too. Like, it's awesome. It helps out with things. Trust people. The second that I started trusting people is when I really started making strides in my own self recovery of just like loving myself. It wasn't even 2 years ago where I was really hating myself because I felt responsible for my brother. I felt like I've accomplished things when I was in high school, and I was like, what was the point of that? What am I doing now? But we are doing stuff now. I went to Westchester, and I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology with the intent to work with addiction someday, with the intent to help one day. Things happen in life. I ended up working as a home health aide, and Planet Fitness and Primo's Hoagies and Acme, and a lot of things happened with this economy. But at the same time, you know, now being a stay-at-home dad and occasionally giving some guitar lessons is like the greatest thing. And I get to be family focused. I am all family focused now, and it is really incredible because I can understand actually like the real perspective where people are coming from now, rather than it just be like I'm so busy with my life that I can't even hear people and I got to worry about the next thing. Now I feel like I hear people more as I'm older, instead of just like the yelling and the ranting and whatnot. There's always a story behind every rant. I really wish that I did less of that, especially to my mom, because like on the phone with her, I'm sure she just wants to hear me be calm or something. But like, even like, I don't know, I just rant. I'll go off about something that I have no control over at all, and then she'll bring me back to life. On people in my life are really good at bringing me back to life on things, but at the same time, what can I personally do to not make other people feel uncomfortable in conversation? Like, sometimes I've gone through a lot of stuff. I bring up dark stuff with random people that I see sometimes and I don't even realize. And so what can I do personally to like try to change that? Why do I feel like I need to receive therapy from some people in a way? But it's not that. It's kind of like how I connected with people. Um, my supports were from Alateen growing up. I did go there every Tuesday night in Wayne, and that was really nice for me. I created a lot of good friends from that, and we helped each other out growing up. I think that when you're young and in a group like that, as a sibling that was in a sibling support kind of group, as a 14 through 18-year-old, you got to watch out a little bit. I mean, because there's people that want to form different types of connections with you. So for me, like, I just wish I was fully recovery focused, and then like not trying to bring my homies from school into a meeting because one of the girls is cute or something. It's like, if you're when you actually get fully focused on recovery itself, then it just you get locked into it, and then you want to be able to just heal the properties in your life that you need to tend to. There's always something that can be better. There's always a conversation that can be had. So when should those conversations happen? How should we go about healing ourselves? And, you know, should there be a time and place for everything? Even before this meeting started, I think, Pat, you were saying, like, you guys were both saying, I love being busy. I'm going to be honest, that is not me. I love chilling. And I really think that is like a big thing for me. I felt busy earlier on, like in early college and whatnot, but I take so much pride in being like, oh my goodness, I get to just sit on the couch with my fiance, or I just get to play video games with my friend, or something like that. So I, I throughout the last couple of years, I think I made some strides with like not needing to be somebody that I blew up in my head. I want to like every aspect of myself and not think of like all the hardships I went through with my siblings. They even still today, there's just always going to be like some sort of issue that maybe got brought up from the past with other people, or the way me and my sister communicate with each other can be too intense sometimes. So there's different ways to work around that. I think that overall you just have to have trust in people who have jobs within the profession. There's a lot of I've struggled with conspiracy thought about like what's actually best for recovery, but the people who are studying about recovery and the people who are appointed jobs are obviously the ones that should be giving these opinions too. So like anybody that is talking about it is making a difference. um I think that I wanted to talk. I talked about like the healthy comparisons between different types of boundaries being porous and whatnot. Um, the one more thing that I still will touch on is when you're a sibling of those who struggle with substance use disorder, or even a kid of one who struggles with it, you might be forced in a lot of uncomfortable situations. And however you can get out of that uncomfortable situation without causing any sort of damage or any way is the best way for you. My personality suits some sort of like positive reaction back. Like if one of my siblings were ever talking to me and I didn't want to talk to them about what they were saying because it wasn't getting anywhere, it was just negative, or it was leading to something hurtful, just I would try to ignore it and just say, look, let's go hang out. Let's go, is it bring up another subject or something like that. Like that's what I have done like with my siblings in the past. Found some success with it, because before, if I were to engage further, then now I'm in the middle of all the stuff that I did not want to be in the middle of ever. So that's just me. I love to have empathy towards certain situations, but it's so hard to have empathy all the time when you've been constantly like when you just there's constantly stuff going on. It's so hard to be empathetic. But fact of the matter is, I mean, like I still wouldn't trade my sister for anything in the world. I think that she's hilarious, and I think that she still is extremely smart. And the day that you know she does find peace within herself, I think that it's going to be really positive for a lot of people, including herself. Um, and as far as my brother goes, I mean, like I just miss the hell out of him. It is absolutely it's terrible losing a sibling when you're that close. Um, but I just think that when it comes to those uncomfortable situations that even he put me in sometimes, um, I do think that it made me stronger at the end of the day. When it comes to regular stuff, I'm good at saying no to an extent now. I think that's important to be able to be good at saying no to things. I will leave it with that. Sorry if it was a little unorganized.
Wow. Uh, Stephen, thank you. I can't believe that was just beautiful. I want to say too that, you said you hope that maybe someday you might become a therapist and help people. I think you absolutely helped some people tonight. So really, that was beautiful and so honest, really honest. And I'm so grateful to you. And I first want to ask Pat if you have anything you want to say before we open up to the others.
Uh, you said three things I wrote down real quick, and there was a fourth. I was like, I'll remember that, and I of course forgot it. You said when we you slid it in there. When we communicate, we heal, and it just came out of your mouth so cleanly. I was like, that's such gold. You spoke about trusting yourself, and like what a underdeveloped and underrecognized like talent, but need. Like can I be in a healthy spot to trust myself? I can tell you, like the people who are battling the substance use disorder don't trust themselves. But it's interesting. I like that you mentioned it. From a family member, like the impact on these behaviors and how this permeates through my life. I start to question so many things. And I wrote, we all need a Brian. Uh, we, we all need a good, stable, solid citizen, reliable, dependable, trustworthy. We all strive to be, but it's also great to have them. Stephen, thank you so much of that is great, and I appreciate your honesty and I appreciate your transparency. And there's a line I say, and by the way, I like to be busy. I'm pretty good at chilling. I'm with you, bro. But there's a line I say, Stephen. Leaders lead, and there's a heck of a lot of ways to lead. And getting up and sharing your story and saying, talking with great honesty about your life is a value that leaders have.
I really appreciate that, Pat. I really do. As far as like my stepfather goes, I mean, like, I know that it's hard to be, you don't ever want to be exactly like somebody because then you lose your own authenticity. But I think it is good to, like, if you do have your Brian in your life, to draw healthy comparisons with that person so that maybe, like, you can understand more about yourself and why you even look up to them so much.
Absolutely. Well
Very
done.
well said. Wow. Okay. So I just put in the chat, earlier, Pat had mentioned Kevin McCauley and his film Pleasure Unwoven. And yes, that is a master class in the disease model of addiction. I put that link in there. And what I said in the comment was, so we have it, on our website, we have about 120 pages. Two of them are dedicated to individuals. One of them is Father Bill, who some of you might know from Care Treatment Center, who passed a number of years ago, and also Kevin McCauley. So conversation.zone/McCauley, you can find it all. At the very top left is a link directly to that film, which is available free. He's very generous. He doesn't care about making money. He's not a filmmaker, as he always reminds us, but he's really good at explaining addiction. And he has another film, Memo to Self, that's about the science of recovery. And just a little note, though, he's going to be our keynote speaker at our spring brunch in April. He's a dear friend. He's been with us 5 or 6 times to speak, and he lives in Arizona. He's a senior fellow at the Meadows in Arizona, but he's remarkable. Well, I could go on and on, but he's great. And there's the link to him. And now I just put in a link to the Alateen information, because Stephen, you mentioned Alateen. What a phenomenal resource, not nearly enough meetings available. I don't know. I'm sure it's been a few years because you've obviously aged out. I think it's at 18 or 16. I think it might be.
I was like 14 when I started going to Alateen, but I remember going there. It's pretty much anybody who's a teenager can go. There were even some 12-year-olds, I think, sometimes that were in there. Just kind of like, even some of the younger kids would listen. Some would talk even and have a lot to say. So they definitely, there was a lot of positivity in those groups.
Right. Right. And it's, if you're not familiar with Alateen, of course, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the granddaddy of the 12-step programs that started in 1935. And many, many 12-step programs have come along since then. 2 that are kind of in my lane are Al-Anon and Nar-Anon. That's for the family members or other loved ones. And then Alateen is an offshoot of Al-Anon, and that is a little different because of the ages of the participants. Rather than a sponsor, there's like a facilitator or a mentor, and who's coming from the Al-Anon world. There are not a ton of meetings, but there are some, and I would encourage you, if you have a young person in your life who's been impacted by parent, sibling, partner, whatever, or whatever that might look like, friend. This is a great resource for young people to come together and talk about that experience. So I want to invite all of you who are participating tonight to please either unmute, ask a question, use the raised hand thing if you want to, put something in the chat. And again, nothing is going to show up in the finished product of the recording, but we would love to hear from you. And we did receive a couple of advanced questions. Let's see. Someone had asked, and I do so encourage you to ask a question. We have plenty of time. We have about a little less than 20 minutes left. How to repair sibling relationship in recovery with feelings of he's going to keep relapsing, so why should I make an effort on my side? Either of you want to speak to that?
Stephen, fire away. I'll always have an opinion.
Certainly. The best way that I could answer that is just what we were talking about with boundaries. And then you got to know, you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, is this even a boundary that I want to have? Like, is this a connection that I continuously want to delve deep into? I mean, even before my brother passed away, we went over a year without talking to each other. And I think about that now, and it's like, at first I beat myself up for it, but then I just had a boundary up. Like I had to keep the boundary up. At the time, he was in a very bad spot with his addiction, so much to the point where, he said some texting my fiance things, and we would go back and forth. We had a rivalry, but at the same time, it's like, even though we were so close, I put that boundary up for over a year. And sometimes you got to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I would add, I like to live like a robot. I'm very robotic. I like to think about logic and reason as much as possible, knowing that we don't live there. We live in an emotional spot. But the more I ground myself in logic and reason, when logic and reason hit emotion, emotion wins 100% of the time. And so I try to really lean on, like, okay, what does all this mean? And when we talk about that piece, like, they're going to keep relapsing. Why would I even invest? So what makes this so hard is this is family. Like, family means so much to all of us. Like, we tattoo it on our bodies, the word family. And it's like, what are my expectations of family? What are, and we all know this. What are they going to think of me if I don't talk to my brother? Right? And that's a driver of human behavior. I think they think this. Or I think they may think that. The boundary piece is, am I willing to shape my relationship with this person I love so much, who has such power to hurt me because I love them? Am I able to have the relationship in an appropriate size box? Boundaries, right? And it looks how it looks today. And if tomorrow they're still clean and sober, we'll talk about what it looks like tomorrow. Does it expand? Does it grow? Do we spend more time together? Are we going on vacation together? If they're using again, what does it look like? And right now it may look like, I'm not going to accept the invitation to chaos. And sometimes for a family member, it's, hey, I love you. Is today the day you want to get help? And that's what a relationship sometimes with family can look like. Unfortunately, I want to know that you're loved. Is today the day you want to get help? And if it's like, that's not an invitation to argue. I don't think I need help. You've all heard it. Have a wonderful day. I want you to know you're loved. There's my box. Sometimes it looks like that, right? And it's peace. I don't want, I don't want estrangement. I want connection. I want us to be together. But it's, where's my peace? And you cannot, under any circumstances, give somebody your peace. We all do. We do a lot. I do it on the road, right? Somebody gets a little too close. My peace gets right out of line real fast. I have to protect it. And even if it's family, got it tattooed somewhere, they don't have an invitation to take my peace. Easy for Pat to say, I'm a robot. Very hard to live in the emotional spot. But that's the best we can do to hold those boundaries and set them. For when we break them or let somebody else break them, right? Again, I don't love you and me simultaneously. If I break it, I'm mad at me and I'm mad at you. If you break it, I'm mad at you. I don't want anybody to be mad at anybody. That's not peaceful. Okay.
And I agree with what you said completely, Pat. Just like I think that it can be very helpful to have that robotic mindset with things, especially as it's for your own peace. It's for you got to do what you got to do. It doesn't make you but it doesn't make anybody a bad person for putting up a boundary that that they need to put up. And I think for me, like, I haven't always been the best with that, so I've engaged a lot with the chaos over the years, whether that's just like talking badly about somebody or like, I don't know, just like being in the midst of it already just because we're family. But as at the same time, it's just so, even though it can be so hard, it is so important to, kind of put up that wall and, you know, tell them you can't necessarily form the connection right now just because it's like where you're at, you know? It some like I said earlier, I was a little bit egotistical sometimes with my brother. I would kind of like, at least I feel like I was in ways, after he was already going through his addiction. I would sometimes say to him, I think that the good boundary that I did have would be like, dude, like, that I got things in my life that are fun right now. Like, is this really worth it for me to like engage with this with you? And then like I would get pompous about it, and then that would help me in a way. Um, Not necessarily for my personality, but I think that it suited me at the time at like 19 and 20 years old. Um, so if you're somebody that's in that age range, maybe like that type of mentality could be somewhat helpful. But down the line, like we always learn new things about how to keep that healthy boundary.
Wonderful. Thank you. Someone asked a question in advance. They asked, in addition to individual therapy and family therapy, what types of online or in-person programs and podcasts do you recommend for a sibling with substance use disorder? And I just put in the link again, or in the chat again, the link to our sibling partnership information. It's also, that's not just about the meeting. We have other recorded programs like this one with other clinicians and other perspectives. We have some readings and some other things. I don't think that we have any podcasts specifically, but we are fortunate to have joining us tonight also the one and only Mallory Henry. So Mallory, I just asked her if she could jump in and just say a little bit about the sibling partnership meeting, because she has been championing this for quite a while. So thanks, Mallory, for jumping in.
Sure. Thanks for this as always, and thanks for Pat. I was feverishly taking notes, and Stephen, it's good to see you and loved hearing your story. Anytime I can hear a sibling share open and vulnerably is, changing things. So I appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, my name's Mallory. I do have a brother who's in long-term recovery. I do a lot of speaking on sibling perspective, and I always appreciate Kim and be a part of the conversation for bringing the sibling voice, because I know as a sibling, it is forgotten a lot of times. So I appreciate that. So I know Kevin's on here too. So I want to shout out Kevin, who is like my fellow co-chair of our sibling partnership meeting, which really came out of the fact that, we've gone to Al-Anon meetings, family support group meetings, things like that, and often met with a perspective that's just not the sibling. And sometimes in that environment, we want to complain about our parents. And sometimes in doing that, you don't want to do that when it's a room full of parents, because you don't want to add any more to their already full plate. And we've, held that so long in our own lives. So to come to a sibling partnership meeting with other siblings who get it is amazing. And I mean, my brother is coming up on 10 years of consecutive sobriety, had a good chunk of sobriety before that. But I still come, I still show up, I still go. And every single time I leave, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. I love hearing those stories. I love hearing a perspective that matches mine. Kevin always says we act like bobbleheads every time someone shares something, because we get to go like, yes, I know exactly what that's like. And it's really powerful, so we meet every Wednesday. It's on Zoom. We have siblings that join us from across the country. We don't even know how they find us, but they do. We have siblings in California, in Missouri. We have a good chunk in the Philadelphia region, which is amazing. But there's no cost to attend, and it's just siblings and just a shared perspective. So every single Wednesday on Zoom from 8 to 9 p.m., we kind of rotate. Eastern time. Yes. Thank you. And so we kind of rotate through chairing. It's just a safe space for siblings to share and have their perspective be met with me too. So I would encourage anyone, I think one of the questions I always get is, how do I make, if there's parents on here, how do I make my other children engage in their own recovery or go to sibling partnership meetings? And, to Pat's point, if we could control people, I'm sure we would do a lot of different things than we do. So you can't control them, but you can say, like, hey, I heard about this. Do what you want with this information. And a lot of times when siblings come, they come back. And because it's really powerful, there's no requirement to come every week. Some siblings check in here and there, some come every single week. We also have a WhatsApp for our sibling partnership meeting, which is really cool. So we have just a chat that is, how are you? What's going on? Or, hey, I can't make it to the meeting, but thinking about you guys. And, over the holidays, there was a lot of messages back and forth. Pat, you said something earlier that really stuck with me, because one of our siblings always says that his sister's drinking is like the ex-boyfriend that keeps coming to the family function that no one wants there. And so we have this kind of like running joke of like the ex-boyfriend there. And again, it's just kind of like a sense of humor that siblings have in processing this journey that really can't exist in a lot of other spaces. So, I really encourage any siblings to come and attend. It's been amazing for me. I know, same for Kevin, and I just wanted to plug it. So I actually do have some podcast recs, so I'll throw those in the chat as well, so that people have them. But thanks for letting me share that.
That's great. I'll add those to the webpage as well. So we have
Perfect.
Yeah, and the WhatsApp, to get onto that WhatsApp that's just for siblings, that's on that siblings page as well, the link that I put in there, so you can get yourself looped into that group. So we have a question for Pat. I don't know if you see this one, Pat. Can you please reiterate what you stated regarding enabling, the idea that when you love someone in addiction, if you don't do this, they may die? Is your point that we need to be able to live with our decisions, or that we still need to change this behavior?
Yes, we need to be able to live with our decisions. Because I think, for me, how I digest a lot of enabling talk in this field, and certainly in social media, it's the soundbite world we live in. A lot of it is, I just digest it as critical. Like, you enabled their addiction, you let it thrive, and again, I point out, because it's true, like, that all ignores the reality of your situation. I was fearful that if I didn't do this, they may die. Well, that's a driver of behavior, right? So I want you to, we can't change it, right? But I can see my own experiences through a more appropriate lens, and having grace for myself. I was trying to operate under extreme pressure. So the first half of your question, yeah, we do need to be able to live with our decisions. I don't want you to feel bad about anything that you've done, that you did from a place of trying to keep somebody healthy and alive. Like, there's no more, wonderful sentiment than that. However, I also can examine them through a factual spot. In enabling 101, am I doing something that they can do, right? That they have the ability to do for themselves? And that can go from anywhere. Am I waking up for work every day? If we're talking about an adult, I'm not going to tell you to do or don't, but don't wake up your adult to go to work every day. Like, you don't have to. They got $1,000 machine in their pocket. It's got an alarm, right? So that's about as firm as I'll ever get with anybody. But it's okay. Again, I can pull the lever and I can create change. And if I'm doing something for somebody that they can do, I can't be a barrier to their recovery. And some of the enabling stuff, when I look at through appropriate lenses, it's, oh, wait, some of their growth and change, I've been a barrier to. I don't want to sit in that chair. So yes, I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to see it with a healthier lens. So a complicated answer to a really complicated thing. I just think it's oversimplified and overcriticized the way I digest the content I see online, and hear people talk about it. It's like again, I want to change our relationship with some of these words. Enabling sounds like such a bad thing. It's like, oh, I was doing the best I can in a situation that I had no training for, with somebody I love the most. Can I cut myself some slack?
We have a way of I love this that came from Diana Clark, who's an author and a clinician, and she says she likes to think of it as protecting addiction. We think, our intention is to protect our loved one. My God, especially I can speak as a parent. I'm also the daughter of somebody, but I'm speaking right now as a parent of someone. From the time our child comes into our life, all we do is think about protecting them and learning about those ear infections they keep getting. And I got to figure this out. We got to get on this. Now you're telling me they have this deadly disease and I'm supposed to stop helping them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we think we're protecting our child. We need to kind of reframe the way we look at that person and see the person I love more than anything. And then here's the disease. Who's asking me for the $50? Is it the person or is it the disease? Who is asking to get a lawyer, to get out of trouble, to do this, to whatever? Is it the disease or is it, am I protecting my loved one or am I actually inadvertently, unintentionally protecting their addiction? And I feel like that's one way that I can look at it and try to separate out that emotion, which is so strong, and those ties are really intense. So I don't want to keep talking on that because there's another question. And gratitude to you, Stephen, obviously for sharing your experience. Good to hear from a sibling. And so here's someone, and yes, you asked what the age limit is, and it is 18 and over for that sibling partnership, meaning just has to do with mandated reporting and all of that. But Alateen was mentioned, but the question is, how do you handle a sibling who is deeply hurt and not ready to attend therapy, Alateen, or any group? Some sibling groups have age requirements, and at the time, my daughter wasn't old enough. It's that thing of like, you can lead a horse to water, right? Like you can tell them about these things, but will they go? Will they help themselves? Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, I definitely think that you have to ask yourself in your head, it's obviously not going to be a perfect communicative situation. So you have to ask yourself, is this something that I really am down to deal with at this particular moment right now? Or do I want to give it a rest and, stand up for myself right now? Like, I can't deal with you have too much on your plate, you have too much going on at work, and you're desperate for your time to chill. So you can't interact with crazy. So how is that going to come out in the conversation when the person who's struggling with substance use disorder is kind of rambling and going rampant in a conversation? The best way, in my opinion, is to decipher whether you want to deal with it or not. If you don't want to deal with it, um, you don't have to answer a phone call or anything like that, and you can make up a story about how you're busy. And then as far as dealing with it, meet them with positivity every second along the way. I mean, I've been caught so many times just being negative with that. But if that's something that if you're in that situation, you can't actively make a life changing save at that point with a conversation, then to kind of coast along and deal with it, it's either full positivity or just don't deal with it at all and put a boundary up and make up something about how there's something else going on and you cannot deal with that at the time. I think that I found some success with that in the past. I don't know if that's like the clinical right thing to do, but just from a sibling perspective, I think that that's like it worked for me a couple of times.
Pat, do you have any thoughts?
It's like the continuation of helplessness. Like, I can't control this person who's addicted, and then I have somebody in the family who I know could use a place to go talk because their wounds are deep, and they won't budge either. The word in my mind is relentless, and that's the wrong word, but encouraging. Like, and what can happen when people in the house are speaking recovery, it has its language and it has its thing. If we keep encouraging this person, like we're seeing and experiencing such growth, such change. Our wounds are healing. That's available to you. Like that's the best we can do. But when they start to hear and they see, because I think some of that resistance is like, prove it. Like and one of our biggest pieces of change, our resistance to change is if I go there, wherever there is, if I go there, you can't promise me I'm going to be okay. And for somebody who's got a lot of wounds, like my wounds are still wide open, guys, and you want me to go try something new, which is going to mean talking about these wounds, which may rip them up more, how about no thank you? So I can respect that. But as the voices and the language in the house change, just keep up the encouragement of, hey, there's options for you. And I think it may help heal your wounds. We're healing. Come on with us. We're setting the vortex. Get caught in it. Right. So, like there's not much fear of FOMO of recovery stuff, and there's not much therapy FOMO. But if we can change the conversation in the house, maybe they'll come along. And again, it's all about, I know you're hurting. There are ways to heal.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I love those responses. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. I really want to thank you both. We're pretty much out of time. I really appreciate you, Pat, and Stephen. Oh my gosh, you were both just wonderful. I'm so glad that you could do this tonight. And thank you to everybody who participated. I've just put the link to the survey in there, but you should see that pop up as well. But please stay connected. Contact us if we can be of any help. You have our website, you have our info. Definitely, if you're a sibling, please check out that Wednesday night meeting. I hope to see you all again, and be well, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. Stephen, thank you.
Thank you guys for listening to my story too. Much appreciated, everybody.